Hey everyone. So I wanted to talk to you guys about the different ways God speaks to us. And it's sometimes not the way you would think. I know a lot of us are constantly waiting for confirmation for things, and some of us feel like, God isn't speaking to us directly, and you get that feeling that I just don't feel like I hear God anymore. I don't feel close to Him. And whenever that happens, what I like to do is I just get right back into the Word. Okay, it's one of the best ways to reconnect with God. And this happened for me this morning when I was doing my morning prayers. And during one of the prayers, Luke 10:19 came up. And I thought, oh yeah, of course, everyone loves Luke 10:19. It talks about, behold, I have given you authority to tread on serpents and scorpions and over all the power of the enemy, and nothing shall hurt you. So I thought, you know what? I love this verse. For some reason, I never memorized it. Let me sit and memorize it. I think that's a good idea. But then the second I started reading it, I started to read, the other verses around it. And I said, well, let me go back and read Luke 10 from the beginning. And what it did was it kind of set me on this path to say, well, this is interesting. You know what? Actually, let me look at how Luke 9 ended. So then I start going back, and it took me directly to these verses in Luke 9 where Jesus is talking about the cost of following him. And he has these three conversations which I remembered, but it didn't seem, like I was getting much from it. But this time when I read it, I got a lot of revelation from it. So let's just go through it. So Jesus gets approached by three different individuals. It starts in Luke 9:57. It says, as they were going along the road, someone said to him, I will follow you wherever you go. And Jesus said to him, foxes have holes and birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head. So he's telling this individual, it's great that you have this excitement for, to follow, but this is a difficult road. Even I don't have a place to lay my head. Jesus is basically saying he's homeless. This is very difficult. So he wants people to understand that. And then the second, he says, so to another, he said, follow me. But he said, Lord, let me first go and bury my father. And Jesus said to him, leave the dead to bury their own dead. But as for you, go and proclaim the kingdom of God. So here, Jesus is referring to the spiritually dead. And he's saying, leave them to go bury their own dead. But another really important thing here that I didn't realize before is that in sort of Hebrew tradition, there is and this is maybe not the direct translation of this interpretation, but it can be viewed this way, in that, when someone says, I need to go bury my father, he may not be meaning it literally. It could be, at some point in the future when my father dies, then I will be able to leave him and leave the house and then come follow you. But Jesus is saying, leave the dead to bury their own dead. There's no time. As for you, go and proclaim the kingdom of God. So he's stressing the urgency of this, and the urgency of leaving, the spiritually dead behind. So then it keeps going. He says, yet another said, I will follow you, Lord, but let me first say farewell to those at my home. Jesus said to him, no one who puts his hand to the plow and looks back is fit for the kingdom of God. So Jesus is definitely very harsh here, but if you think about this, he's saying you cannot look back at the life you left behind, right? When you put your hands on the plow, what do you do with it? You're driving the plow forward, right? It makes no sense to drive the plow forward and be looking back over your shoulder. That doesn't do you any good. But Jesus is stressing here the importance of, once you decide to follow him, you leave everything. He's the most important thing in your life, and you leave it all behind and don't look back, right? Made me think of Lot's wife, right? Don't become Lot's wife, where you look back and you're still curious about your old life, or maybe you miss it or something. You can't do that here, because if you do, Jesus is clear. He says, you will not be fit for the kingdom of God. So anyway, this was really interesting for me, because I went from thinking about just memorizing a verse to getting real revelation, and something for me to think about in my own life. So I share that with you. If you ever feel disconnected from God, or you feel like you're not hearing his voice, dive back in the Word and you can find yourself connected instantly.